You're listening to Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast for and by Rockies fans on Rocky Mountain Rooftop. Thank you for joining us as we discuss all things baseball and Colorado Rockies.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast, part of Rocky Mountain Rooftop, the Rockies affiliate of Fans First Sports Network. I'm your host, Skyler Timmons, and joined here, once again, wearing his Nuggets hat, Evan Lang.
I mean, it just so happens that we are recording on the eve of Game 4 of the Denver Nuggets versus the Timberwolves, just a date when we're recording. And after a nice bounce-back win the other day, this game is going to be super, super important. So might as well throw a little mojo into the universe, as it were.
And now give us your post-game reactions, and we'll get them both good and bad.
I don't want to do a bad one.
Oh.
And I don't want to jinx it. And I don't want to jinx it by doing a good one. So, no.
That was some sort of basketball game that was played between those two teams.
I cannot believe that the Denver Nuggets played the Minnesota Timberwolves in an NBA basketball game.
Can you believe the points that were scored?
But one team scored more points than the other.
Is our new podcast character of the vague, generalized robot man?
No, that's how, people ask, it's like, oh, sports coverage needs to be completely objective. Oh, there you go. That's how that's how completely objective sports coverage is.
Objective sports reporter. Oh,
one team scored more points than the other.
It's just Perkins from Parks and Recreation.
I have not watched that show.
It is a very good show. Quite funny after the first season. But we're not here to talk about Parks and Rec or create more dumb podcast recurring characters because Mark Wahlberg is enough. But we're here to talk about the Rockies, Evan. And Evan, I'm going to blow your mind here because guess what? The Rockies won 2 games in a row this past week. And guess what else, Evan? I need some reactions here. Guess what, Evan? They also won a series. And it doesn't end there, Evan. They just swept the World Series champions, Texas Rangers. We're on a 4-game winning streak as of recording. Pause for applause. Yes, we can hear the roars of Coors Field coming all the way through our mics. But yeah.
It would be cool to record live at Coors at some point, but...
Just up in the rock pile and we're just up there.
With a laptop and a microphone.
Mm-hmm. Heck, you just need we just need one phone and my phone and a microphone. But yeah, it's crazy because the week started off rough. Rockies lost first 2 games against the Giants. One of them pretty ugly loss. And then, not so much ugly where it just came up short. But they started to show some life in that Giants series. And then by the time they won Game 3 of that series, and then just rolled through the Texas Rangers in 3 games, one of those games in which you went to, and we'll talk about that. But they finally won 2 games in a row. They were the last team to do that. They finally won a series. They were the last team to do that. They finally got a sweep, their first sweep since May 4th, when they took out the Milwaukee Brewers, May 4th, 2023. So it's been a full year since the Rockies last had a sweep. How are we feeling, Evan, after this past week where we have trudged through some horrendous baseball over the past month?
This is probably the most positive podcast we've been able to record so far this year, which is crazy because you have the first series win since September of last year against the Giants. You have that, like you said, the first sweep since May 2023. That is an insane amount of time. That is over a year between series sweeps. And to have the Rockies come in, and I know that people are going to say, oh, well, it's at Coors, so whatever. But the Rockies weren't playing well at Coors or on the road. And I think that's what's important about the series is that it actually felt good to be watching some Rockies baseball for a change. And
Mm-hmm.
the one today, the finale, wasn't super impressive in the grand scheme of things in terms of score. The
Yeah.
Rockies won 3-1 on the Mother's Day matchup, but it still is important to recognize, I think, the Rockies. I hope this means that they are finally finding some footing,
Mm-hmm.
because it really has been. It's been an ugly start to the season. The Rockies have been scuttling among the bottom of the major league rankings in terms of wins and losses, in terms of most offensive statistics, in terms of pitching. But this series against the Rangers, and capping things off against the Giants, I think the big page turner was that series against the series finale against the San Francisco Giants, because we stomped them. It was a 9-1 victory, and we came away going, where the heck's that been, fellas? Because they were hitting the ball extremely hard and extremely well. The pitching has looked overall pretty solid, and it, I think, gave this team momentum. And I was talking about this today. This is probably the most energized and the most happy this team has looked on the field all season. Everybody was smiling. It looked like everybody was having a good time. And I think it's going to be a big deal in terms of setting the tone for hopefully the rest of this month, maybe even the rest of this season, where the Rockies still aren't going to be contenders, but they can at least be playing some fun baseball and getting stuff out there. And it was a great series. And I went to the Saturday night game. It was my first game at Coors Field of the season. And I went into that game going, I don't know how I feel about this. I don't feel as excited as I normally am to go to Coors Field and watch the Rockies. And I was starting to perk up a little bit after the Giants win and after that first win of the series. Once I was there at Coors Field, I was fully into it. And then the win was just icing on the cake, especially a good win that ended in the pouring rain. And it was a lot of fun. But this has been the best stretch of Rockies baseball we've seen all season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it. Is we've talked about it, and you can go back through the podcast and at purplerow.com. What we've written about, okay, they're struggling pitching. They're walking way too many guys. They're doing this and that offense. They're striking out way too much, which, yeah, that's still going to always be a problem for the Rockies. But even during the series, it just felt like, okay, they're taking better at bats. They're actually punishing some missed pitches. They're being disciplined. They're playing complete games where they were getting it all fronts. Starting pitching, really spectacular. During this 4-game set, even really outside of, like Peter Lambert's start wasn't too pretty. But other than that, everything else has kind of been not too shabby during this homestand for the most part. I think Dakota Hudson pitched somewhere in there too. And that wasn't too pretty.
That's kind of
that was more of him just being inefficient because he walks so many dang people. But overall,
really kind of telling about how Dakota Hudson's been so far. Of us going, I think Dakota Hudson pitched somewhere.
Did he pitch in there? The rotation gets me all messed up. Who's in it? But saying that it looked like especially these last 4 games, and you could start to see inklings of it during the Giants series, where they're putting things together on the field. Guys are taking much better approaches at the plate. Brendan Rodgers looks better. Ryan McMahon's picking back up. Brenton Doyle's getting picked back up again. Charlie Blackmon is looking like he's getting perked up again. And so you're seeing it throughout that lineup a little bit more. Extended bats. Stellar starting pitching. Really good bullpen. Incredible defense, which was the highlight of Sunday's game. Of just defense, web jams all over the place. So you're seeing that energy. You get one win, okay, and then they get the second win. I think that second win, Evan, was the most crucial one because that really kept them on a roll. It kept the momentum going instead of them, woo, we won a game, and then they get just blown out in the next game.
Yeah,
Where
that's
instead
taken it takes the pressure off your back.
Yeah.
Where the Rockies knew that they had not strung together wins the entire season. And I think finally doing that was just a really good emotional boost that allowed them to keep going through the rest of this homestand. Relatively short homestand, too. Only 6 games, I think. So what's really going to matter is how are they going to carry this momentum on the road with them? You know, they're headed to San Diego tomorrow, and then after that, they're going to San Francisco and they're going to Oakland. It's a 9-game stretch on the road before they're back at the end of the month versus the Phillies. It's going to be interesting to see how they can keep carrying this, because we know that there's usually a little bit of a hangover offensively between coming into Colorado and then coming out of Colorado.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be crucial, is how can we take what we've done here in these 4 games that we've won, how can we carry that on the road with us? Because honestly, Evan, to tell you the truth, I haven't seen much difference between the road Rockies and the home Rockies this season.
I would agree with that.
There's been times where they've hit better on the road, and they've pitched better at home so far this season. So it's, if anything, it feels like this year is getting rid of that stigma of, oh, there's just going to be these huge drastic splits between home and away. Like, no, if you're a good ball team, ball club, you can really negate any of that and take advantage when you're at home, and then negate those effects on the road. And that's going to be a true test of, can the Rockies carry this momentum, keep it going? Can our pitching keep it rolling, in that offense do just enough to manufacture runs, which they had to do that during this homestand.
What's really interesting is, so I'm looking at the splits home and away. Not updated yet as of today, just because Baseball Reference doesn't update until the next morning. Yeah. But coming into today, the Rockies aren't particularly a good team either on the road or at home. They're definitely better at home, but not in a way that's going to blow you out of the water. Team OPS is 737 at home versus 623 on the road. 265, 325, 412 versus 222, 284, 339. There's not a tremendous difference there. Only a few more home runs, a few more triples, a few more doubles, a few more stolen bases, and they've actually struck out more at home than on the road. So you're right in that the Rockies really haven't capitalized at Coors Field, but the pitching also has really not been that huge of a difference between the two. They're definitely pitching a little bit worse on the road, a 5.73 ERA to 5.02. But overall, like, the numbers themselves are not that drastically different. And what I think it really is, it's just going to be, you need to carry this. If you're not going to be a dramatically different team, both at home and the road, then that is an ample opportunity to carry this 4-game stretch into a road series against, 3 teams that are performing pretty well, including the Oakland A's, who have been much better than expected so far this season.
And I think what will help is the best teams can score runs and can manufacture runs in any way. If the home run's not working, well, they can still string together hits and score runs that way. We see the Dodgers do this all the time. Oh, the home run ball's not working? Okay, well, we'll just single you to death. And that's what we need to see the Rockies be able to do, because we've already seen the home run just isn't happening for the Rockies. Like, for some reason, they've just gotten away from that identity, and so they have to figure out a new way. Look at the Kansas City Royals. Homies don't necessarily hit a lot of home runs, but man, can they manufacture runs. Like a huge run differential. I think they've got one of the best run differentials in baseball, positive. And so they manufacture runs. That's what the Rockies have to do. And part of that, Evan, they got to start stealing more bases. There's a couple more during this series, but they're still bottom of the league. Heck, Brendan Rodgers stole a base, Evan. Think about that. First career stolen base on his first attempt.
That was amazing.
He's got 100% right now. He'll never steal again.
Just quit while he's ahead.
Yep.
Retiring on top. Yeah, we did. We saw Brendan Rodgers today steal his first big league base on his first attempt for a guy that's played over 300 big league games and has been in the league since 2019.
Mm-hmm. We saw, Brenton Doyle. He's been better this year offensively, but the stolen bases haven't really been happening for him. I don't know whether it's a confidence thing or just doesn't have the free reign to run, as maybe
My
you
guess
hope,
is
just the
my
fear
guess
of
is the
running into
latter,
outs. Yeah,
honestly.
probably fear of
Um,
running into outs.
I think that's exactly it, because remember, the Rockies coming into spring training were hyper aggressive when it came
Mm-hmm.
to stolen bases. They were sending folks pretty much all of spring training, but then the Rockies got out to as bad a start as they had, and I think they just didn't want to have someone run into an out or risk it when they were pretty much always trailing in
Yeah,
a game.
which
But
which I think is kind of the overcorrection. Like, just let guys keep running, and eventually they'll learn. Especially some of these younger guys, like Brenton Doyle's on base. All right, give him a free run. He's got the green light. He's your fastest guy on the team. We saw Jordan Beck swipe a bag today on
yeah,
Sunday. It's like there is speed on this team, but some guys just aren't stealing bases. Like, I think of Ezekiel Tovar. Nolan Jones was struggling to get on base, and so he hasn't really been getting any steals. Brenton Doyle gets on base, but he's not really getting any steals. Ezekiel Tovar can steal bags, but he's just not doing it. It's a part of that game which we saw can help manufacture runs. We saw them do it a little bit more here as they're winning to get out in front, trying to tack on. It's when they fall behind, they're like, we don't want to run.
and it really has been all of these big score. The Rockies had two really big scoring innings over this homestand. One in that blowout win against the Giants, and then one on Saturday against the Rangers. And it really did come with stringing to it. Very little of it came from the home run. It was stringing together hits. So you go back and you look at when the Rockies beat the Giants, and they put together the first real hit parade of the season, where they had 6 straight base hits. And this is how that inning went. It was the bottom of the fourth. Ezekiel Tovar triple, Rymack single, Diaz double, Bouchard double, Brendan Rodgers single. And then that was when Brenton Doyle uncorked one and hit a home run
Mm-hmm.
to cap things off. Then we had a pop out and a ground out, and then we capped things off with a triple and a double as we hit around in that inning. So the Rockies got just the parade of hits, and yeah, the home run there definitely helped. It was a 3-run home run, but overall, it was getting those consistent base hits together that led to that big scoring thing. And even more so, the 6-run 7th inning that the Rockies had on Saturday, where, yeah, there was a little bit of a bullpen meltdown, honestly, during that, because it was the Rockies went in with 2 outs. So Jordan Beck started the inning with a single, and Ezekiel Tovar laid down a really good sac bunt to move him over to second, and then Brendan Rodgers struck out. So with 2 outs, the Rangers went to their bullpen and brought in David Robertson, who's been nails this season. He came into the outing with like a 0.87 ERA. He'd been really, really good this season. But then all of a sudden they started stringing hits together. Ryan McMahon's single, wild pitch advances him to second. Elias Diaz scores on Elias Diaz hits a single. Sean Bouchard is hit by a pitch. Brenton Doyle draws a walk. Jacob Stallings singles. Charlie Blackmon comes in and pinch hits with a double and then advances to third. And that is what put the Rockies ahead on that. So if you're not going to hit the home runs, because they're not, let's be honest.
Yeah.
The Rockies don't have a ton of home runs in May so far, and they only have one guy who's hit multiple home runs, and that's Jacob Stallings with 2. But it's proving that this team does not have to live or die by the long ball.
Yeah. It'd be nice if they could get the long ball a little more, but that comes with what we're saying is string together. It's good to build some confidence as a team. Because like you said, you could see the emotion. They were having a lot more fun. The Rockies were a lot more fun when they're winning and competing and doing well. Showing that emotion and smiles in the dugout, playing loose. Like, winning cures all. And it's something that the Rockies just have to figure out. How can we do this more consistently? And it's by doing those things. And real quick, right before we head to break, just want to shout out 2 guys, Evan, from that pitching staff. Cal Quantrill, Austin Gomber. Dudes have been nails on the mound, and they have turned into a pretty solid 1-2 punch in that rotation here this season in the
Two
early
of
goings.
the best outings of the week came from Austin Gomber and Cal Quantrill. Another quality start for Cal Quantrill. 5 of his 8 starts so far this season have been for the QS. Gomber has a decent string of QS as well. They both struck out 5 batters. A couple walks, but not too bad. Compared them to, say, Dakota Hudson, who walked 5 in his last start. And, I'd be remiss to not mention Ryan Feltner, who had a really good outing against the Rangers on Saturday. And also, you know what? Ty Block, solid 5-inning start on Sunday.
Tabalake.
We'll talk about it a little bit later, but Peter Lambert's going back to the bullpen. He's being taken out of the rotation, and Ty Block made that start on Sunday. But it really has been the two main guys are Gomber and Quantrill. Gomber has been pretty good all season. Quantrill has been pretty good all season. With Kyle Freeland out, with Marquez out, with Centella out, they are really the anchors of that rotation who are going out there and giving it their all every game.
And building that trade value. Ooh. Which I'd hate to see Quantrill go because he still has that control. But also, if you can get value from him, you got to trade him as much as it hurts. Maybe you can try and re-sign him eventually. But anyways, good stuff. Happy times. We have to enjoy it while it lasts before the dyers of the road consume our lives because we hate playing on the road, especially in San Diego. San Diego.
Where's Ian Desmond when you need him? He was always great at Petco Park.
That's true. At least we have Chuck, who's pretty good against the Padres, so good for him. Anyways, good times. Rockies on that 4-game win streak. Heading into Monday. Hopefully they can keep it rolling. Let's get 5 in a row. Why not? But we'll go ahead and take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll talk more Rockies baseball stuff, so don't go anywhere. Here on Affected by Altitude. Welcome back here to Affected by Altitude. I'm Skyler, that's Evan, here part of the Rocky Mountain Rooftop Network. I don't know why we call it the network when we have 2 shows, so there we go. That counts as a network.
Yeah, and we get our interview shows in.
Yes, we do.
If you haven't listened to it already, Skyler did an excellent interview with Fresno Grizzlies player Aiden Longwell. It's up on both purplerow.com and on any of your podcast feeds. Definitely worth checking out.
Mm-hmm. He's good. He's a good guy.
He's good people.
Nice, solid dude.
Such a nice young man, that Aiden.
It's true. Trying to convince him to try and become a 2-way player. He was a lockdown reliever on the mound at Kent State University. But I think he enjoyed.
It's my same thing about Zach Agnos down in Spokane. He was a pretty solid shortstop in college at Eastern Carolina. But, oh, man, these guys just have to pick one, don't they?
They don't have to, but I think the Rockies prefer them to do so, which is why they shouldn't try and draft that one 2-way player because they would just make him do one thing. Anyways, solid dude, Aiden Longwell. But we're not here to talk about Aiden, but you can go check out our podcast about him. Good stuff. But we are here to talk about some youngsters, Evan. Particularly one Mr. Jordan Beck and Hunter Goodman, who are on kind of 2 weird paths at the moment here in the start of their time here on the roster this season, where Jordan Beck, when he gets called up, dude has been in, to the credit of the Rockies, he's been in there pretty much every day. Hell or high water, he's in there every day. Hasn't exactly turned out the way maybe we'd hope that debut would go after the way he was playing down in Albuquerque, but he's been in there every day. But Hunter Goodman also hasn't really been playing that much. Pretty sporadic, long stretches where he's not playing. And so it's just kind of this weird dichotomy of how the Rockies are working with these 2 different rookies.
Yeah, it's interesting. Grain of salt for today because as of today's recording, Hunter Goodman has had 2 straight starts, which is great. I love it. But it also is kind of telling that in both of those starts, he's been pulled at the end of the game for somebody else. At both of these starts, he started at first base and has been subbed out for Elias Montero at first base at the end of the game.
Uh-huh. Which I think credit to Montero, who I would say is the better defender, and they want better defense at the end of the game.
Yeah, let's touch on that really quick. I want to shout out Elias Montero because he has really clearly put in the work to become a better defender at first base. I think third base as a regular position was never going to happen to him, but he has been very, very solid at first base for the Rockies so far this season. He's probably never going to be a Gold Glover, but that is some solid first base defense. He's getting the picks. He's doing it. He's doing everything right over there. So shout out to him. But Hunter Goodman, it's just been weird because, and I've been screaming to the Rockies, it's like, if you have him on the roster, you've got to play him. There's no point in him just sitting on the bench because they called him up on April 24th while we were in Mexico City, and he's just really not started. He had only had 4 total starts before this weekend. And, that's so different from Jordan Beck, who started all but 1 game since he was called up on April 30th. And I do, credit the Rockies where it's due that they have handled Jordan Beck very well. He is out there every day. He's getting his reps every day, even though he is struggling somewhat. But you need to give that same opportunity to Hunter Goodman. You need to give that same opportunity to all of your young guys, especially when there are ways to work them in. The biggest thing that's been driving me crazy is that Elias Diaz, who has been hitting well, don't get me wrong, but when they're giving him an off day from being catcher, they're putting him in at DH.
Uh-huh.
And then Jacob Stallings is in at catcher. And Jacob Stallings has been hitting well too, so that's fine. But on some of those days, you might as well say, okay, well, why don't we put Hunter Goodman at DH, give Elias Diaz an actual day off? Or why don't we let Hunter Goodman try catching because he is a catcher? And so it's been very frustrating, but it's nice to see Goodman getting some at bats. He hit a home run. Overall, he had a pretty solid weekend. But it's frustrating to say the least, where it just feels like he's not getting the opportunity. And his big problem, like the big concern with Hunter Goodman was strikeouts. Well, we need him to get knocks and we need him to not strike out. He only struck out once this weekend. Give him more chances.
And it's hard because you've got Sean Bouchard, who's been starting in right field mostly. Okay, like people want Sean Bouchard to play. Okay, Jordan Beck's out in left field. And when Nolan Jones comes back, presumably maybe Jordan Beck sticks around and plays right field. Honestly, Hunter Goodman falls into that same camp that Montero was in, of he's just not the priority. And in sense of, on the pecking order of the depth chart, he's down there. But we know what he can do with that bat. We've seen it when he clubs a home run. Man, those suckers, they stay gone. But he, entering into Sunday, he was 2 for 18. His 2 hits are home runs. So awesome. And I don't know if it's the Rockies trying to, can he contribute in that, part-time role where he's coming off the bench every once in a while. And this becomes in that philosophy thing of, if you're the Rockies, are you valuing trying to put the best team possible, or are you wanting to get the most development time for players? Because at times it can't always be both. And so you put Diaz in the lineup because, he's one of your best hitters, and you want your best hitters in the lineup. But also to give him days off because you don't want him catching every day. And Stallings hitting well, I think that makes that a little easier to put them both in the lineup. But then, what do you do then? Because, we want to get Beck in there, but we also want Bouchard in there because his approach is something this lineup really needs. And so do you want to put the best lineup possible, or do you want to give the best opportunities for young guys? And so that's kind of the balancing act that we're seeing the Rockies try to figure out. And I think Hunter Goodman falls into that juggling. What do we do with him? Because he's not exactly our best hitter. We know what he can do, but he's not the most consistent that we've seen him at the big league level. And defensively, he doesn't really have a secure home defensively. So he's fallen into this kind of weird utility spot, whereas other guys have kind of settled in places. So it's a weird balance that we're seeing, and this weird conundrum.
It is, but at the same time, it's frustrating because you can see how long of a leash that they are giving to both Sean Bouchard and
Mm.
to Jordan Beck, where Sean Bouchard is in a little bit of a cold stretch right now. The last 2 games of the series, he didn't have a hit. He actually didn't have a hit for the entire Rockies Rangers series.
He had a hit today.
No, he didn't.
Jordan Beck?
Sean Bouchard.
Oh, Sean Bouchard, yeah.
But they are letting him play through it. And then you have Jordan Beck, who's been very hot or cold. You know, he had that entire Pittsburgh series where he didn't have a single hit and he just struck out a ton.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, he had a pretty hot and cold series against San Francisco, where in that finale against San Francisco, where the Rockies went off offensively, he was hitless and struck out twice. And that's a big thing. Jordan Beck has struck out a lot here, where in 39 total at bats, he's got 17 strikeouts and no walks, not even a single one. And he's got a couple hits. He's got 7 total hits. He finally got his first extra base hit. Still hasn't hit that first run. He just stole his first base today. But you can tell that they're giving him a really long leash to get acclimated.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird that they are not extending that same courtesy to Hunter Goodman, who they've called up and has been on the roster for a hot minute. Because I give the Rockies credit for doing that with both Bouchard and for Beck, where they're very clearly trying to evaluate what the future of these two guys is going to be on the team. Unfortunately, they're going to have to decide who the odd man out is going to be if/when Kris Bryant returns and when Nolan Jones returns.
Mm-hmm. And that's the weird thing. And it seems like Sean Bouchard, and I've said this before, he's my ideal bench utility guy, extra outfielder. He's not going to be starting every day, but he's proven he can come into a game off the bench either as a pinch hitter or like after a couple days off to start and do well. And I think that might be what they're trying to do with Hunter Goodman. Can he do it in that role? And it's tough when he was doing so well down in Albuquerque, clubbing home runs, doing all this stuff. But then he comes up to the big league level and it just hasn't translated. And we see that with all kinds of rookies. And so it's tough. Like, well, what do you do? And, ideally, trade away Diaz while his value is hot, but then you risk of crippling your rotation who like working with Diaz and stuff. There's all kinds of pieces to this puzzle, Evan, that the Rockies have to kind of sort through and figure out what the heck they're doing. But I think the consensus we can both come to is they can't keep rolling it the way they do.
Yeah.
They've just kind of let guys rot away on the bench. Like, no, you got to make decisions. You can't be sentimental. You can't sit there and hold on to a guy until the very end, but you have to make a decision like, okay, we really don't see it working out or have a really spot for him because our first, second round picks are coming up and, Hunter, maybe we don't have a spot for you. We'll trade you away. See what we can get for that. So you just got to do something.
I think the most important thing is that when Nolan Jones comes back, there is not a spot on this roster for Jake Cave, who has played his role very well as the fourth outfielder and bench guy. But the original reason why we brought him in was to be the backup center fielder. But then, Brenton Doyle's played basically every single game. And Jake Cave, when he's playing, is starting in left field or starting in right field, where he's coming in as a defensive substitution for Charlie Blackmon late in the game. That's not why you told us you signed this guy. Yeah. And Jordan Beck can hold his own defensively in any of the 3 outfield spots. And unfortunately, Jake Cave, I like the guy, but that leaves him as the odd man out. And he's also been vulturing starts and at-bats from the younger guys. Yeah. So I think that's the obvious move when Nolan Jones comes back is that you've got to DFA Jake Cave. And, that's the business of baseball, unfortunately, because by doing that, then you have this good group of people you can cycle through where you probably have Nolan Jones in left. You can move Jordan Beck to right field. You can rotate him out with Sean Bouchard. Sean Bouchard can also DH. He can play some first base. You can do the same with Hunter Goodman. But right now, that's the odd man out. And
and then you have to make a decision when Kris Bryant comes back.
Mm-hmm.
Of either you hope somebody's, well, you don't hope somebody's injured, but you hope maybe it's an easier decision like that. Otherwise, yeah, you're gonna have to make one of those decisions. Okay, who's getting sent down? Okay, maybe if Jordan Beck, they decide, okay, Jordan Beck, he needs regular, maybe some more refinement down in AAA. I think you and I both said, like, okay, yeah, the Jackson Holiday treatment, perfectly fine. He came up, he knows what he needs to work on. He's seen big league pitching now. He knows what to take and work on down in AAA. But that could be the other avenue there of, okay, we'll open up some room and give some other guys more time to cook. But
it's tough because this is a team that needs to, after the deadline, look drastically different.
Yeah.
And, you hate to say Elias Diaz needs to go because he's very well loved in the clubhouse. He is currently one of the Rockies' best hitters. He's got a great relationship with the pitchers, but he's also on the last year of his contract. You need to extract some value from him. And it's the same with a lot of these other veteran guys where that's just the business of baseball when you're rebuilding.
Yeah.
But the problem with Kris Bryant is he's not going anywhere. And if he is going to try and come back, you need to find a way for him to play without blocking everybody else. I think the key of that is Kris Bryant needs to never be in the outfield again.
Yes.
Never again. Just enough. He is at first base or he is DH, and that is it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And like we're already seeing there, in an effort to keep Chuck fresh, he sometimes goes days, won't start for consecutive days, stuff like that sometimes, unless he starts rolling, and then they get him in there for a couple days, and then he's off like one day, plays off. So they're managing his schedule. You're going to have to probably do that with Bryant the rest of the season in a way, but yeah, keep him out of the outfield. We'll talk about that in at the end of the show, but yeah, keep him out of the outfield. Yeah, it's a weird conundrum with those two guys.
But then it is time to start making decisions on some of these upper level former prospects. It is time to decide if you think Eleris Montero, Hunter Goodman, Michael Tolia, Sean Bouchard, it is time to make your decision on where these guys fit in the future of this team, if anywhere. And if it is nowhere, if you decide, I don't think you got a spot with us, Hunter or Michael or any of like that, that is okay. But we've seen for decades the Rockies clinging so tightly to their prospects, overvaluing their prospects, and just holding on for them too long. And then you just can't get any value from them if it doesn't work out.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing, Evan, is it's okay to let guys go and to move on from some guys who are still good and have potential, like Tolia, Montero, Goodman, Bouchard, all good players, all have a lot of potential in different areas, power, other things, different capabilities. But in the way the Rockies are constructed right now, you don't have room for all of them. And so you got to move on because you have guys coming up, and stop with the logjam rolling. Like, let's get some X-Lax in this farm system and open up the floodgates.
Clear things out.
We got to clear that Coloradan, that colon.
But it really is that, because like there are so many prospects who aren't getting playing time because we're just log jammed everywhere. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, the Rockies have now held on to some guys for so long that we have guys from the 21, 22, and even 23 draft classes who are knocking on the door.
Yeah. Yeah. And guys that we drafted several years ago that haven't even sniffed the big leagues yet, or just barely are knocking on the door. There's a slow overturn in this system, which should have been rolling through guys, especially these last couple of years. Because you look at the Orioles, I mean, it seems like every other day, it's like Orioles' top prospect leads the minor leagues in extra base hits and home runs. I'm like, oh, geez, how do they have so many?
And we've seen a real change in the construction of the Rockies farm system where the last couple of years, what have I always said? It's a very bottom heavy system. Everybody's in Fresno or Spokane. That's no longer the case. Everybody's in Hartford. Some people are in Albuquerque. You're getting to the time where these people you're going to want to call them up. And we've got some guys who I think will be here sooner rather than later. A lot of it is pitching, mind you, especially in the Double A level. But then you have guys like Sterling Thompson and Zach Veen who are hitting very, very well down in Hartford.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, Benny Montgomery was hitting very well, but he just had potentially season-ending shoulder surgery. Oh, that guy cannot catch a break injury-wise, and it really stinks because he is so talented.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, team's got to start doing some things. Like you got to start rolling through guys and give them guys opportunities. And I think the Beck and Goodman scenario that we've been talking about is a perfect example of that. Okay, you can choose and give one guy opportunities and try to give the other guy as many as he can, but they've clearly made their bed with Jordan Beck as opposed to Hunter Goodman type of thing. So they got to pick a dude and just hope it pans out. And then if the other dude, just kind of move on. Give him an opportunity somewhere else.
Exactly. And, that's okay. I think the Rockies and we'll cut this off because I know we need to take a break here in a minute, but the Rockies very clearly have a fear of letting someone go and then having them succeed elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's happening here. They don't want to let Michael Toglia go because they think another team is going to take him and get that full potential out of him that we couldn't get.
The Rockies keep putting players in the friend zone, but then instead of letting them talk to somebody else, they still kind of flirt and feign interest in them to keep them coming back. But they still keep them in that friend zone, Evan. I'm not talking from experience here, but
if anything, though, what that should mean is that if the Rockies are so worried that if you're going to let go of someone and someone else will be able to bring out that full potential, that should lead to a reevaluation of your own development system.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much. Wackadoodle times.
But yeah. Again, huge props to the Rockies, the very least. Jordan Beck is getting regular playing time. He's fun when he's playing. I love how his hat flies off every time he does anything exciting.
Yeah. But Jordan, if you ever hear this, please shave that mustache or grow something out bigger. Like, come on, man.
Nah, at this point, you got to rock it.
No, I guess he is Mike Honcho and it fits the persona, but that dirt lip ain't doing it for me.
I do think it's got potential on there. Like he's got potential as he starts getting older. It's the same with Hunter Goodman. Hunter Goodman's got a very patchy facial hair situation.
The mutton chops in.
His cheeks fill in really, really well, but then it's just blank across the face. But there's potential.
It's almost like these are extremely young men in their early 20s.
Yeah. I'm in my 30s and I still can't get the full beard in, so.
Nope. Neither can I. It just
I
grows the all in the fleshy neck chin, like I'm going to start talking to you about Naruto and Yu-Gi-Oh!
Now you're going to start talking to us about Linux.
Yes. Have you heard about Linux?
I'm too stupid for Linux. I've tried. I'm not saying that to insult myself. I legitimately my brain cannot process it.
Mm-hmm. But we'll take a break here, and when we come back, we'll do some general housekeeping on some other topics, and also finally get around to our April-March Players of the Month. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back here to Affected by Altitude. And Evan, I don't know why I say don't go anywhere. We'll be right back when we're not a live radio show.
I mean, we don't want them to click away from the rest of the show.
That's true. I'm done listening. Anyways.
Yeah, as soon as the outro rolls, then you can click away. Go do whatever you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But
go listen to Conan
stuck with us until that outro rolls.
Go listen to Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend after this. Well, you can do it before and then come to us, but
watch a 16-minute compilation of every goal, horn, and song in the NHL.
There you go. But anyways, quick housekeeping here. Some general random stuff. We've mentioned it before, Ty Balake in the rotation. I like old Ty Balake. We know what we've got out of him. He's a dude that pounds the zone, throws strikes, gets ground balls. Like, he is that prototypical pitcher the Rockies want. But it's nice to just have one of those guys. And I like Block. He goes in there, eats some innings, gets out of there nice and quick. Sometimes it can be really good. Sometimes it can be like, eh. But
And
good
we
old Tabalake.
and that move comes at moving Peter Lambert, as we mentioned earlier, out of the rotation. But honestly, looking at how he has done this season, 3 starts in his last 4 games, Lambert in the rotation just hasn't been working. It's very
Yeah.
clear that he's been much better out of the bullpen than he has in a rotation. In his last 3 starts, 6 earned runs given up in 3 innings, 4 earned runs given up in 3 1/3, 7 earned runs given up in 3. Versus as a reliever, he's got a bunch of outings out there, multiple innings, 1 to 2 to even 3 innings, without giving up runs, without really walking a lot of guys, and getting a couple strikeouts on there. It's very clear at this point that Peter Lambert's place is in the bullpen. And that is okay, because there is
Yeah.
always going to be a market for a long reliever on this team.
Yeah.
And that is Lambert's role. And I think that's how it's just going to end up working out.
Yeah. It's just weird because it was the opposite last year where he's better out of the rotation than he was in the bullpen. It's flipped this year where he's been just better out of the bullpen. And like, that's where I was like, yeah, I'm kind of done with the Lambert starting experience because we see how good he was coming out of the bullpen.
Mhm.
Comes in with the target of, okay, I'm going to hit 2-3 innings, scoreless. All right, we'll take that. We need that.
And that's the thing, is that Lambert, it's been tough because he's had such a hard time staying on the field over the last couple of years. But it is clear that he has a place on this team. And right now, that place is out of the bullpen.
Yeah, that value is at that bullpen because then it opens up guys we see in the minors that could be coming up, that are knocking on that door, that could be making their debut sooner than we think.
Carson Palmquist.
Parson Colmquist.
Colmquist.
Yeah, that's a hard one to say. That's a hard one to say.
Good job, Skyler.
Parson Colmquist.
I think there's going to be a lot of changes coming in this rotation relatively soon. I don't know how long Ty Block will be in the rotation. I definitely don't mind him being there. But at some point, Kyle Freeland's going to try and come back. I think at some point the Rockies are also probably going to DFA Dakota Hudson.
Mm-hmm.
He's just, the amount of walks he's issuing have been a problem. But then we're getting to the point where there are some guys knocking on the door, especially Carson Palmquist, where I am of the opinion that we need to see him sooner rather than later, and he just skips AAA entirely. Yeah. But for now, at the very least, Ty Block to the rotation, Peter Lambert back to the bullpen. I think at some point we're going to see Anthony Molina get a start or two. Probably not anytime soon, but at some point.
Yeah, moving right along. But here's the big thing we want to talk about before we get to Players of the Month. Some important updates, like we mentioned. Kris Bryant and Nolan Jones, both dealing with back issues. Like father, like son. They are mentor and mentee, both getting mentored with back injuries. But they will be going to Albuquerque and probably start rehab games Tuesday for Bryant, and then probably Nolan Jones probably will start Wednesday down there in Albuquerque and work through some things. I think the goal is for Bryant to join them in San Francisco by the end of the weekend, or by the end of the week.
I think the big thing for Bryant, and it's going to be a tough one, and we have been talking about this a lot recently, is for Kris Bryant. We found out over the last week sort of the nature of his injuries, and it's not a great prognosis. Described by himself as disc problems and severe arthritis in his back. That is not something that's going to get better with age. And so I definitely have concerns about bringing him back onto the lineup with that. And there's been some very good articles about this in the Denver Post over the last week. And it's tough because you can tell that the guy wants to be out there, and the way he talks about it, he wants to be out there. But at the same time, there's also, I think, not enough light being shown on the severity of his back issue. These are things that are not going to get better with age, and they're not going to get better with playing time. And it just feels like when we bring him back, we're just counting down until the moment where he's going to have to go on the IL again.
Yeah.
And he only got through 13 games this year before he had to go on the injured list.
Yeah. And it was tough because he was maybe starting to get some momentum there in Toronto before he got injured and had to go on the IL. You know, and I want to preface it like I think we're both in that camp of I don't think anybody faults Kris Bryant for signing that contract with the Rockies because knowing his issues and getting older and those back issues probably were injuries were still kind of bothering him leading up to that. If you're getting paid 7 years, 182 million, I'm probably going to take that. That's a nice financial security for my future, even though I'm going to be on a awful team. So a lot of the blame for all the Kris Bryant situation that can be really placed on a guy that they're built off a legacy of hotels and meat. You can place it on them because he was kind of fingerprints on that. His name is Mick Donford.
Curse you, Mick Donford.
Mick Donford.
McDonfort, for those who want to spell that out. Mick Donford.
Mick Donford.
My least favorite fast food chain.
Yeah. What comes in the Happy Meals at the McDonfords?
Empty promises.
There you go.
You open up the bag for your toy out of your Happy Meal, your kid's meal from McDonald's.
It's just a wet fart sound.
I was going to say it's a proclamation of things to come. The toys are coming. Don't worry.
Don't worry. The toy is coming. Either that, you just open it and it just goes. Just the nastiest wet fart coming out of that little bag.
And I feel for KB. I do, but at the same time, there's just it's really tough to think that this is going to ever work out in any capacity.
Yeah.
I've said on my social media at this point, I honestly think the best option for him would be to retire.
Yeah.
He's going to get his money either way, but we can't have a guy that's going to constantly be at risk of going on the IL.
Mm-hmm. And I think one thing too, because reading in that article is from Patrick Saunders at the Denver Post, some good stuff over there. You can always find your free articles. Hopefully you can find them. But it's that thing would be nice if I know it's tough because he's going to take a lot of ire. Like he is that face of the Rockies problems. And we've talked about booing Bryant where it can be warranted at times. But it's too, and you read in it of the players like, man, we hate that he's getting booed and like he understands and all this stuff, where it'd be nice to like rally behind him. And I think it was Nolan Jones in this article talking about like the booing doesn't help anything. Like it doesn't help him. It'd be awesome if we could all rally behind him and the city and the fans. We could rally behind him because we saw that. What did the Phillies do for Trey Turner last year? And I think it was Susie Hunter calling for Rockies fans. We should do this for Kris Bryant this year, of giving him standing ovations. Show him support. Which, hey, that wouldn't be too shabby. Like, I like that idea, rally behind a guy.
And you've got, both Ryan McMahon and Nolan Jones point out in this article from Patrick Saunders from the other day that how important he's been in the clubhouse. And Bryant wants to be that guy. He's got this great quote. It's like, I'm going to remember the camaraderie and how they've made me feel. That's what I'm trying to embrace. I want to be the first guy to high five someone when they hit a home run, high five the pitchers when they're grinding. I want to be there in the good times and the tough times. It's very easy to do and doesn't take much effort to be a good teammate. I want guys to remember me in that light, not be remembered for hitting home runs or getting an MVP award.
Mm-hmm. Whereas we as fans want to remember him as the MVP and guy hitting home runs. So it's that trying to, like we talk about with everything, he's got to find that balance where he can stay healthy and produce, be that really good teammate, but he's got to produce too because the fans are part of the team. Like we're like that. We're the 27th man on the roster, and at the moment, and we can all understand as fans, he's not pulling his weight with that contract and the way he's played and inability to stay healthy. We're angry about that. We're annoyed by that. But it's important to rally behind these guys and remember they are human beings. Like baseball's just a small aspect.
Something I've thought of just recently is I said just a couple minutes ago, I think the ultimate option, best option for Kris is going to be to retire. You know, this severe arthritis in his back isn't just going to clear up. But I think there is a way for him to continue. And I've said this for so many other players. There is a way for him to be that clubhouse presence. And it could even be incentivized by the Rockies of, we're paying you millions of dollars for the next, 4 years still. Coaching. Have him be a coach. Bring him in to keep him in that clubhouse. Make his salary for that. And he can still be doing what he's doing. But I don't see a future in which he's going to be able to bounce back to the kind of form that we need him to have.
Yeah, he's never going to produce and live up to the contract. I think we've said that. I don't think he's going to retire. You just can't get a 32-year-old veteran who's had this history of success to just up and retire. And it'll be a test of the Rockies of can they help him manage that back and keep him healthy, because we've seen him at times. Here's those small glimpses of, man, Kris Bryant, like when he can club a ball, man, those things fly. Mm-hmm. And so we've seen those glimpses, but can the Rockies keep him healthy? And
the primary thing is keeping him out of the outfield.
He's a first baseman, bud.
First base, DH. That's all he can do.
That's all he needs to be. We have enough outfielders. Oops, all outfielders. It's my least favorite Captain Crunch. That's the worst, breakfast item at McDonald's. The oops, all outfielders.
I ordered a steak bagel breakfast sandwich, and you gave me 4 right fielders.
You gave me 5 sinker ballers who walk too many people.
That's the only way to get to McDonald's. There's no drive-through. It's only a walk-through.
Oh. Beer, 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 beer. He shoots, he scores. Anyways, before we close things out here, hopefully our boys can come back healthy and productive. But our players of the month, Evan, and we'll do this real quick. And we figured, folks, if you followed the show now, we usually did pitcher of the month, position player of the month, and then an MVP. We figured that's kind of redundant because we found that it was usually one certain position kept winning the MVP, and it was usually the guys that play every day. And so we're just going to do pitchers and a pitcher of the month and a player hitter of the month,
because almost every single the MVP was always one of those two.
Yeah,
there was never like a third guy, so you might as well just do the pitcher of the month and the player of the month, and they're both MVPs to us.
MVPs in their particular department. But we'll go ahead and start here with offensive players of the month. And Evan, who is your pick for offensive player of the month? I figure it might be the same one as me.
Jordan Beck. He hit 500 in April.
Way to go. 2 singles. Congrats.
No, I think pretty much everybody is going to agree that Ryan McMahon was, in March and April, the most valuable hitter on this team. We've talked at length about how much better his at-bats are looking, how he's gotten rid of that hole in his swing, that he's still going to strike out, but he's not striking out as much, and he's getting a lot more done with his at-bats. Ryan McMahon in March and April had an OPS of 892 to lead the team, so he's hitting 321, 397, 495, 4 home runs, 7 doubles, leads the team with RBIs with 18, drew 15 walks, the only Rockies player to have double-digit walks in March and April, while only striking out 35 times in comparison. It really was, Ryan McMahon is the guy who led this team offensively in March and April, and really does continue to do so in May, but it was him, far and away.
Yeah.
And he had some of the most exciting moments of the opening for the season, including that walk-off grand slam at the home opener.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where I am, Ryan McMahon, where I've written about it over at Purple Road, just the changes and things he's done to improve his plate approach. Yeah, the strikeouts were still there in March and April, but he was offsetting that with those 15 walks. He was hitting for power. He was getting on base. He was driving in runs. What few runs there were to drive in. 18 RBIs, 7 doubles, 35 hits led the team. 12 runs scored. That was third on the team. So he was up there in pretty much everything. He was a big part of that offense where everybody was floundering. You know who wasn't floundering? Was Ryan McMahon. So he is deserving of that Player of the Month. Special shout-outs to Ezekiel Tovar. Had a solid month. Brenton Doyle had a really good April for the most part. Elias Diaz, really good April. I think those three were really like the picks of McMahon, Doyle, and Diaz.
For sure.
But yeah. Congrats, Ryan McMahon. The Big Mac.
Turn of the Mac.
For legal reasons, we can't say the Big Mac is available at McDonald's. But you can get the Rymac Jack.
It is a 2-patty burger with
the Rymac double stack.
With Jack cheese.
With that special Rocky sauce on it.
And it comes with a side of Dinger Tots.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah. Ryan, again, cutting the awkward silence. Ryan McMahon was great. Brenton Doyle was great. He was my second choice, I think, would have been Brenton Doyle, because we've seen so much growth from Brenton Doyle just this season so far.
Which the growth of Doyle, I think, put a lot of wrenches into the plans, because I don't think they anticipated his offense being as good as it's turned out to be, which then put that the Jake Cave thing kind of in this weird limbo where actually he's kind of expendable now because we don't really need him because Doyle's hitting. He's doing it all. So and a good first month of the season did that for him.
Definitely.
All right, and now on. Oh,
no, I was going to say, but now we have to talk about pitching.
Yeah, on to the pitching of the month, and this one might be a little easier. There's fewer options, much as the case last year. But Evan, who is your pitcher of the month?
So for me, my pitcher of the month is. I don't know how I don't know how it'll be received because he's not been flashy, but it's got to be for me Cal Quantrill. Cal Quantrill has very quietly ended up being an incredible get for the Rockies this season. He has been one of the best pitchers on the team. He's getting through and he's eating innings. He's getting quality starts. In March and April, he had he had 3 quality starts. He went at least 5 innings in all but one start, and that start was on April 3rd, so it's not like it was, in the middle of the month or anything like that. He hit a stride in April, and he's continued that stride where, Kyle Freeland went down, and some of the other starting pitching hasn't really been there, but Cal Quantrill does indeed have that dog in him.
Mm-hmm. It is a very good pick, and I think I would that too, but I think I'm going to give it to Ryan Feltner, just because I think Ryan was the one who is at a time where, I think Quantrill was kind of struggling with his command in the early goings of the season, was still competitive, but I think Ryan Feltner was, felt like the starter in the rotation where you could go, okay, we're going to get a pretty, maybe solid or dominant outing of sorts, where it wasn't always the flashiest. What could we say about anybody that month for the starters? No, had the stinker on April 23rd or on the April 17th. Gave up 6 earned runs, but still went 5 1/3. But the big thing for him is he doesn't give up a lot of home runs. He led the team in strikeouts that month. Didn't walk a lot of guys. It was only no more than 2 walks. He hasn't allowed more than 2 walks in a game all season. But he goes in there, would pound the zone when he's on. Dude is dominant. And I think that was the epitome of April 30th against Miami, where he throws the 8+ innings. Where just kind of the game we shall not speak of.
Yeah.
The collapse. But he's shown those flashes of just brilliance. And hey, he was the first starter to get a win last month. But so I think Quantrill is right there, because Quantrill got skewed a little bit with those numbers in April, but very solid.
Oh yeah, and Feltner definitely deserving of that as well. Ryan Feltner has still, I think, the most upside of any pitcher in this rotation right now.
Mm-hmm.
And when he's on, he's on. And that I feel so bad for him because he really did put that loss against the Marlins to end April on his back, despite the fact that it was not his fault.
Uh-huh.
He had 8 shutout innings of baseball and ended up, he got credited for three earned runs in that 9th inning where he wasn't able to get an out before getting pulled. And I think it was a nerves thing where this was his opportunity to get his first complete game shutout. And, unfortunately it didn't work out. But you could tell how much he was blaming himself when that loss was not his fault.
Yeah. Really quick, I'm going to pull an audible here. Should we start doing reliever of the month too? If it warrants it. Because I want to say there's 2 relievers that were very deserving of being recognized as relievers of the month.
Is it going to be Jalen Beeks and Victor Vodnik?
Yes.
I think it's definitely worth talking about. Victor Vodnik especially. We had a lot of concerns about Vodnik coming out of spring training. He did not look particularly sharp in spring training, and he definitely had his struggles at the end of last season. But he has been excellent to start this season. And it's been very strange because we've seen him used in a way that we haven't expected, where he is frequently called upon to work 2 innings.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not what I would have ever expected. But he finished April and March with a 2.60 ERA over 12 appearances, 7 1/3 total innings, 15 strikeouts. And he's blowing 100 miles per hour past people. He's looked fantastic. I am delighted with Victor Vodnik this season so far.
Mm-hmm. And then Jalen Beeks, that 2.40. He's been that anchor in that bullpen for these that first month and here into May. 15 innings, just the 4 earned runs on 9 hits, 10 strikeouts. 7 walks, 10, but he's come in and put out some fires, come in some dire situations, he and Vodnik. So we figured might as well shout out some relievers because a lot of the time we end up going starting pitchers as the pitchers of the month.
Yeah, and Jalen Beeks now is the team leader in saves with 3 saves in 4 opportunities, which there's not really I know the Rockies are looking for their closer, but you don't really need a dedicated closer when there's so few opportunities for a save.
Closer by committee.
Pretty much.
Jalen Beeks, Jalen Beck, Jordan Beek.
Jordan Beeks. Beeks and I've seen Beeks and Bird put together a lot. Jake Bird definitely has had a pretty solid start to the season as well, but
not so much last month.
Yeah, but it was really the start of last month, honestly.
Yeah. I'm here to talk to you about the birds and the beaks.
All birds have beaks. Including the roseate spoonbill.
But do dinosaurs?
Some of them.
Anyways.
You know what else has a beak?
The end of the show. Yes, they do. Good old squids. Join us next time here on Affected by Altitude for our nature documentary show. But as always, we appreciate you tuning in, join along with our stupidity and our dumb jokes.
Man, what a thunk before outro.
Yeah. Squids have beaks. Okay.
They do. Squids are neat.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many crazy kinds of huge squids out there. You got colossal squids, you got giant squids,
Squidward
squids, Squidward.
But we always appreciate you tuning in, putting up with our stupidity. We are putting in the trademark for Mick Dunfort's, and so look for new locations near you. We'll just have to assemble a menu. That would be a fun exercise.
We've got the Rymac Jack double stack. We have a side of dingers, and dingers are tater tots. We've decided that.
Yeah.
But the kids' meal toy is disappointment.
Mm-hmm. As always, it's disappointment. The food's
not bad, and you're going to have a good time eating there, but
The
you know,
atmosphere is good.
it's not going to win any awards anytime soon.
You'll eat there because it's cheap.
It's cheap, and for what you're paying for, it's good.
Could be
But
worse.
you know, when you're in a different city, maybe, and you're trying some of their experiences, it's going to be a heck of a lot better.
Yeah, probably. But Evan, where can the folks find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Evan_Lang27. You can also find me on purpleroad.com doing the Monday Rock Pile and weekly Pebble Report. I'm still trying to figure out how to fit in the monthly Pebble Report, so bear with me. There's not really going to be one for March and April. I've just been trucking along with doing that as I'm getting used to that new set of stuff that I'm doing. Really looking forward to the article that I have that's going to be coming out the day this podcast comes out. Which is going to be about John Gray making his return to the Mile High City. So look forward to that. And then you can find Rocky Mountain Rooftop and Affected by Altitude on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Rocky Mountain Rooftop. That's at ROCKYMTN Rooftop. Skyler, where can we find you at?
Find me over on Twitter at sideline_crowd, and then writing Wednesday rock piles for purpleroad.com. I taking a break from writing game recaps for Fans First because it was becoming miserable watching the Rockies and then having to write those. So gonna start writing maybe back some regular feature type stuff that I enjoy doing. Yeah, also go check out, you can follow Every Rocky Ever and find episodes, our most recent episode, talking about all the Rockies from Mexico, which was a lot of fun. Did Evan watch it?
I have not yet. I'm not going to lie.
Corporate synergy is not going.
That's an all-time low.
It's at an all-time low because I revealed them all to you and Patrick in last week's episode. but yeah, as always, we appreciate everybody tuning in and your support. Really appreciate it. Again, go check out that interview with Aiden Longwell of the Fresno Grizzlies, and hopefully we'll keep working, and hopefully we can get some more guys on here and talk to them because, hey, they're a lot more interesting than we are.
Wow. I, for one, am just as interesting as a professional baseball player who gets to travel the country and play an exciting sport.
Yeah.
I have a cat.
Mm-hmm. I'm wearing sweatpants.
Does Aiden Longwell have a cat?
He strikes me as more of a dog person.
All baseball players are dog people, except for Scott Oberg. Scott Oberg was a cat person, and that is why I love Scott Oberg.
But that'll do it here. Long outros as always. I think I hold the record. I want to see our StatCast on average episode length when I host, but hey, we have fun here. But until next time, I'm Skyler, that's Evan. Hit him with it.
Farewell!
Do. It's Mick Dunford.
It's adequate.
It's perfect.